வணக்கம், good morning. என் பெயர் டாக்டர் பிரபாகர். இன்னைக்கு வீடியோவில் we are going to discuss about the sodium potassium pump. This is the important university short notes. Sodium potassium pump is the one of the important example for the primary active transport. Active transport is transport the ions against the concentration and electrical gradient. It utilizes the energy. So active transport is divided into the two types. Primary active transport, it directly utilizes the energy. Secondary active transport indirectly utilizes the energy. Sodium potassium pump is example for the primary active transport, directly utilize the energy. Other examples for the primary active transports are hydrogen potassium pump and calcium pumps. Sodium potassium pump is the important example for the primary active transport. So we go to draw the simple and neat sodium potassium pump diagram, and you go to explain the mechanism of the sodium potassium pump. This diagram shows the structure of the sodium potassium pump. So sodium potassium pump has two subunits, larger alpha subunits, smaller beta subunits. The alpha subunit molecular weight is around 1 lakh. Beta subunit molecular weight is around 55,000. Alpha subunit has in the cytoplasmic side 3 sodium binding site and ATP binding site and ATPase binding sites. So in the same alpha subunit, the extracellular side there is a 2 potassium binding site, O binding sites. Okay. When the sodium 3 sodium and ATP is binding with the intracytoplasmic site, it produces the hydrolysis of the ATP by activation of the ATPase. It produces the ADP and high energy phosphates. That phosphate is attached with the ascorbic acid, forms the residues. It produces a phosphorylation. So this produces structural changes. It pumps the 3 sodium ion into the outside. Okay. Conformational structural changes, it 3 sodium outside. So dephosphorylation, the ascorbic acid phosphate group is hydrolysis. It helpful to pump the 2 potassium ion into the cell. So phosphorylation helpful to transport of the sodium ion from the inside the cell to the outside. Dephosphorylation of the phosphate residue helpful to transport the potassium ion from the extracellular to intracellular side. Action of sodium potassium pump. So binding of the 3 sodium and ATP on the alpha subunit of the sodium potassium pump produces the hydrolysis of the ATP to ADP and high energy phosphates. So phosphorylation will occur. So that phosphate is bind with the ascorbic acid. So that produces the structural change of the alpha subunits. So that will transport the 3 sodium from the intracellular to the extracellular area. Okay. So after binding the potassium and cobind in the extracellular area, the dephosphorylation of the ascorbic acid and phosphate bond will occur. So that dephosphorylation transport the potassium ion from the extracellular area to the intracellular area. So ultimate function of the sodium potassium pump is the pump the 3 sodium ions outside, pump the 2 potassium ions inside the cell. Sodium potassium pump is an electrogenic pump. It pumps the 3 sodium ions outside of the cell, 2 potassium ions inside the cells. So it more positive ions are going inside to the outside. So it is important for the creation of the electrical potential across the cell membrane. So it is called as the electrogenic pump. It is also important for the maintenance of the cell volume. Okay. So failure of the cell volume, sodium potassium pump produces the cell swelling and hemolysis. So it is important for the maintain the cell volume. It is also important for the cytosolic ion concentration. Ion concentration inside the cell. It is maintain the high potassium concentration inside the cell and low sodium concentration inside the cell. And it is important for maintaining the resting membrane potential at the cell membrane level. So it maintains the RMP. And the drug digitalis routinely used in the cardiac failure patient. The digitalis action is block the sodium potassium pump. So it block the sodium potassium pump. So inside the cell sodium level will increases. That sodium is exchanged via the sodium calcium exchanger. It is also present in the cell membrane. So inside the calcium ion is increases, that increases the cardiac cell contraction. So it helpful for the pumping of the heart. So the mainly digitalis act on the sodium potassium pump. Summary of the sodium potassium pump. It is the example for the primary active transport. It directly utilizes the energy. It pumps the 3 sodium ions outside the cell, 2 potassium ions inside the cell. It is an electrogenic pump. It maintains the cell volume and resting membrane potential. This maintains the cytoplasmic ion concentration. The drug digitalis mainly act on the sodium potassium pump, that is helpful to the cardiac failure patient. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please share your friends. Those who are not subscribed this channel, please subscribe this channel. Thank you once again.